Hi everyone, Jason Melillo, CCX Sports. Time for a look back at another one of my favorite Sports Jam Spotlight stories. And this one coming up, I didn't have to go too far back into the archives to find. This one aired in January of 2019, and it featured Totino-Grace wrestler Jake Svihel. And Jake was a great subject for a story, not because of what he had accomplished on the wrestling mat, but because of what he had not accomplished on the wrestling mat. Jake had been to the state final in his weight class 3 seasons in a row, his freshman, sophomore, and junior seasons, and lost all 3 times. So we did the story in January 2019, Jake's senior year, and he was having another great season. He was undefeated, definitely a favorite to go back to the state final match. And I went to the story expecting Jake to kind of be very tense, be putting a lot of pressure on himself. And I think I felt that way because I had been at the state final his junior season when he lost, and I was in the tunnel after the match, and Jake was just distraught. You know, he was so upset, he was crying, he was, kind of yelling at himself. And Jake's dad, Doug, was there, and Doug is also the head wrestling coach at Totino-Grace. Doug was trying to comfort him, trying to talk to him, and Jake was just inconsolable. So I go to do the story, and I didn't find Jake to be very tense at all. You know, he was a very mature young man. He was certainly looking forward to the opportunity to get another crack at a state title, but he wasn't dwelling on it. He wasn't making it his everything. So it made for a pretty good story, I think. So check it out. Here is the story of Totino-Grace wrestler Jake Svihel. Jake Svihel doesn't waste time on the wrestling mat.
A quick shot by Svihel.
Well, that didn't take long.
No, 3-second takedown.
I'm just like a high-pace offensive wrestler. I don't like to wrestle on the defense. It just kind of, I don't feel like myself.
It's a style that's serving him well. Svihel is undefeated this season and ranked #1 in the state at 120 pounds.
When you're pushing the pace that much, you're used to wrestling like that, so your conditioning is most likely better than every other. You have an advantage over conditioning on every other wrestler you wrestle.
Svihel started wrestling at 5 years old, often under the watchful eye of his father Doug, who's been the head coach at Totino-Grace for 30 years. It wasn't always easy for Doug to get his young son to go to practice.
When I was little, I dread going to practice. Like once I got there, it was fun, but like I didn't want to go. And
when their buddies are out there playing in the yard or doing something else, you know, I don't really want. They got to stop and go to the practice. You know, they don't always like that. And then they get there and they're fine. So you got to grab them by the earlobe once in a while.
I'm kind of glad he did, because now it kind of installed in myself where I'm like, even if I don't want to go, it's like 90% of the time you don't want to end up going to do something. You got to go and do it though. So that's what's going to help me become a better wrestler. So
I've been very fortunate. It's been ingrained in him, and it's in him to wrestle hard and practice hard no matter what. I mean, he does not take shortcuts, and he goes out there and he trains hard. He trains, you know, he's training as hard as, if not harder than anybody.
Svihel wrestles year-round and is ranked in the top 10 nationally by several polls. Last year, Svihel won the USA Wrestling Folk Style National title at 120 pounds, and the experience of facing elite opponents has been invaluable to Svihel's progression.
I feel like I wrestle better when I'm wrestling a tough wrestler, and I get more out of it. And to me, it's not about it is about winning, but if I lose, it's more of like a learning experience. So my goal isn't to win every match. My goal is to get better every match.
Kind of the motto was, I got to find you a loss, you know, and we've been able to find him a loss here and there. But, you know, the thing about it is that he learns then to take it as any other opponent. He just wants to wrestle the best. He just wants to wrestle as hard and score points. And I think that's what, he doesn't get nervous when it comes to the big stage.
For everything Svihel has accomplished as a high school wrestler, a state title has eluded him. Svihel has lost in the championship match 3 years in a row.
Last year was probably the toughest year, because it was like my 3rd time I was winning in the match. I blew the lead. He's a great wrestler. Now it just kind of drives me. I'm not like going into the season, I'm not hyper focused on the state title. It's a lot easier on me. I think it takes off a lot more pressure. So I don't feel like people might think that I've got a lot of pressure going into my 4th state title, but I don't have as much pressure because I'm a lot more lighthearted on myself this year.
State title or not, Jake Svihel's time as a high school wrestler will come to an end soon, but his journey as a student athlete will continue at the University of Wyoming.
I had a lot of different schools to choose between, and I liked them all. But I think the main thing was the coaches. I liked the coaches right off the bat. They seemed really transparent with me. All the people that I met, they seemed like they were hardworking dudes. Their minds were all on the same path. They all had the same goal.
And Jake did finally capture that state title in his senior season. He capped an undefeated season, actually, to take the state title. And certainly a well-deserved and hard-fought state championship for Jake. And he had a good season, his freshman season at the University of Wyoming. He had a 13-11 record. And the season was, of course, cut short, like all college sports, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But Jake has 3 more seasons at the University of Wyoming. I hope you enjoyed this look back at the story of Totino-Grace wrestler Jake Svihel.
Find more prep sports games and highlights at ccxmedia.org and follow us on social media.